Hi guys, I'm going to be taking you through Brendon Gallacher by Jackie Kay today, and we can make some annotations together. So starting off with some context. So Jackie Kay was born in Edinburgh in Scotland in 1961 to a Scottish mother and a Nigerian father. She was adopted by a white couple at birth and was brought up in Glasgow. The experience of being adopted by and growing up within a white family inspired her first collection of poetry, The Adoption Papers, in 1991. Themes that we may find within Kay's poetry may be childhood, loss, family, and imagination, which we will definitely find today. So this is a quotation from Kay. I still have Scottish people asking me where I'm from. They won't actually hear my voice because they're too busy seeing my face. And this kind of conveys Kay's issues with other people viewing her identity. And we may see that within her poetry as well. Okay, on to stanza 1. So I'll read the stanza out for you first. He was 7 and I was 6, my Brendon Gallacher. He was Irish and I was Scottish, my Brendon Gallacher. His father was in prison, he was a cat burglar. My father was a Communist Party full-time worker. He had 6 brothers and I had 1, my Brendon Gallacher. Okay, so we can see straight away that this is in past tense and it's Kay reflecting on a childhood memory. In most cases, the speaker and the poet are not always the same person. The poet is the person who wrote the poem and the speaker is the narrator of the poem. But it seems here that actually they are the same person. This is Kay reflecting on her childhood. You could even say it's young Kay. We can see straight away it's a conversational and informal tone, and it's also in first person. So, if we look at the repetition of he was and I was, and we see that a few times here, and it emulates the speech of a child, so it's quite simple language. Okay, so he was, I was, he was, I was. So we know straight away that this is a child speaking. So we've got the contrast here. He was 7 and I was 6, Irish and Scottish. I think it's quite interesting here that Brendon Gallacher is 1 year older than Kay. And that's interesting because she has obviously made Brendon Gallacher up. So she's chosen that he is a year older. And maybe she wants to feel protected by an older friend. And when you're a child, somebody older is always much more exciting. Okay, and then we've got the possessive pronoun my, which conveys Kay's desire to protect Brendon Gallacher, but he's also a figment of her own imagination. So he is hers, all right, and rightly so that she keeps repeating my Brendon Gallacher. Then you've got his father was in prison, he was a cat burglar. And then her father was a Communist Party full-time worker. So there's a huge contrast between the two fathers. Brendon Gallacher's father is a lot more interesting. And the glorification of cat burglar is showing that she's got an active imagination. Moving on. He had 6 brothers and I had 1, my Brendon Gallacher. Perhaps Kay had a desire for a bigger family and more siblings, and maybe it could show that she feels lonely at times and she would like more people around her. Also suggesting that she preferred the company of boys, which is maybe something that she wanted to show. Might be that Brendon Gallacher is someone that she wanted to have around. Okay, moving on to stanza 2. He would hold my hand and take me by the river, where we'd talk all about his family being poor. He'd get his mum out of Glasgow when he got older, a wee holiday someplace nice, someplace far. I'd tell my mum about Brendon Gallacher. Okay, so you've got he would hold my hand and take me. So it seems that Kay enjoys the physical contact here and being led. It's kind of a desire to be looked after and protected almost. You've got the enjambment from the first to the second line. So river going straight into where could be emulating the river flowing. You've got some contractions here. We'd, hid, kind of showing the childish language, but also showing kind of this, like, it's colloquial language, that she's comfortable. She's comfortable in Gallagher's company. We have the Scottish dialect, a wee holiday. So wee is Scottish dialect for small, creates realism and shows her heritage as well. And the fact that he is going to he wants to take his mum out of Glasgow is kind of showing Gallagher as a heroic figure, someone who Kay may want to be around or even be out herself. So this is quite a good person, and it could show something that she wants to be when she's older. Then you've got the repetition of some place and some place far. So creates a sense of emotion and reminiscence. Perhaps they are bored and unhappy in Glasgow and they want to go somewhere else. That could show that Kay's feeling that as well. You've got 5 stanzas of 5 lines if we're talking about structure, and they all kind of end on this R sound, this R rhyme, so river, poor, older, far. Okay? Stanza 3. How his mum drank and his daddy was a cat burglar, and she'd say, why not have him round to dinner? No, no, I'd say, he's got big holes in his trousers. I like meeting him by the burn in the open air. Then one day, after we'd been friends 2 years. Okay, so at the beginning, we obviously know that Kay had been talking to her mum about Brendon Gallacher. She hasn't been hiding him, but she's kind of getting carried away with what she's talking about. So she's saying his mum drank and his daddy was a cat burglar. They're kind of undesirable parental qualities. You've also got the child dialect daddy there, so we still know that she's quite young. And she'd say, why not have him round to dinner? So this is evidence of kind and welcoming parents. Kay's family are asking him to come round for dinner, but it's also bringing Kay straight back to reality, because that obviously cannot happen because Brendon Gallacher is not real. No. So there's got repetition here showing her persistence and defensiveness. No, Kay doesn't want to be found out here. And she said, I'd say he's got big holes in his trousers, as this was an excuse to not have him round. I like meeting him by the burn in the open air. So we've got imagery of nature here. Open air and burn kind of suggests mystical. And there is the freedom of being alone in the open air. So she has the freedom, nobody's watching. Maybe Brendon Gallacher is more alive outside, and we might see this later on in contrast. Then all of a sudden we have a volta, so we have a turn in the poem. Then one day after we'd been friends 2 years. So the atmosphere is changing now. Up until now we've kind of had this nostalgic view, very happy with her friend, but now we've kind of got a change in atmosphere. After we've been friends for 2 years, 2 years is quite a substantial time for an imaginary friend. Okay, stanza 4. So we've got the enjambment carrying on from the line before, showing that this is a story that's continuing, this volta. And you've got the lowercase o, and it's kind of showing that there's going to be quite a sad following. When it was pouring and I was indoors. So you've got prophetic fallacy here, the rain foreshadowing a dark moment approaching, and indoors. And this again reiterates that Brendon Gallacher thrives in the outdoors, as we've seen in the previous stanza. So this may suggest that this is not going to be good for Brendon Gallacher. My mum says to me, I was talking to Mrs. Moir, who lives next door to your Brendon Gallacher. Didn't you say his address was 24 Navarre? So you've got a rhetorical question here. She knows that Kay is lying, but she's still speaking in a parental tone, giving her the opportunity to maybe tell the truth. She says there are no Gallagher's at 24 Navarre. You've got this half rhyme on the ending, and it's kind of like realities hitting home. It's like a dark nursery rhyme, and it could convey the first awful moment that you have as a child, and this could be Kay's. Okay, stanza 5. So, there have never been any Gallaghers next door. And he died then, my Brendon Gallacher, flat out on my bedroom floor, his spiky hair, his impish grin, his funny flapping ear. Oh, Brendon, oh, my Brendon Gallacher. Okay, so never have been really consolidates reality. It shows that Kay really was making it up the whole time. And he died then. It's a very kind of short statement, it's to the point, and it also showed the immediacy of his death. It happened very, very quickly. You've got the possessive pronoun again, my, but it's kind of changing from proud ownership to a sense of loss. So before she was kind of showing him off, my Brendon Gallacher, but now it's my Brendon Gallacher. She's sad that she's losing him. You have got the alliteration of the f sound, flat, floor, funny, flappy. It's the first time we hear about his physical appearance, and this f sound kind of gives this harsh reality of what he maybe looked like. You've also got spiky, impish and flapping. They kind of give connotations of mythical and fun and naughty. As this was Kay's own imaginary friend, she could create him however she wanted to. And it did seem that he kind of had some inhumane kind of looks, and he didn't look like your average young boy. And it also reiterates that he was in fact fictional. And then we leave the poem with obviously repetition of Brendon Gallacher, but you've got the repetition of the exclamation "oh," and it kind of shows Kay's overwhelming emotion. She suffered a loss, and this could be potentially her first loss as a child. It could also signify a transition between childhood and adulthood. Maybe this was the last bit of her childhood, and now she's realised that she does have to grow up, and she's going to have to leave Brendon Gallacher behind. Okay, guys, I hope that was helpful for you. Thank you for listening.